Boston Celtics come back after losing Jaylen Brown to beat the Atlanta Hawks. I think this could be a game that we look back on as a very important one, and I'm going to explain why on the Locked On Celtics podcast.
Be ever ready. Recognize the city of champs. Boston, baby, we do what you can't. Locked on number 18, Tatum and Brown, J-team, step back. We gon' wet that and slay teams. Of course, the Celtics, who else could it be? Screaming like KG with the Larry O.B. Karalis above average, assessing the team status. Best daily pod, no cap, salary matching. Clutch like Bird the DJ, keep John on replay. Prime time, dapping up the truth on the sideline. Raining J's, how it started, raising banners, how we finished. Locked on Celtics, pod, home of the winners. B.
Hey there, thank you for making Locked On Celtics your first listen every day and part of your daily routine, here for you Monday through Friday. Locked On Celtics is free. It's available everywhere podcasts exist, and the show is on YouTube. You can watch me do the podcast as well. Please subscribe to the YouTube page. I'm John Karalis. I cover the Celtics for Boston Sports Journal. I've written a book called The Boston Celtics All-Time All-Stars, and I was one of the voters, the media voters, for the Boston Celtics 75th anniversary team. On this Wednesday podcast, we are looking at a 107-98 Celtics win over the Atlanta Hawks, a win that didn't look like it was going to be a win early on. The Celtics were outscored by 14 in the first half, giving up 28 points and 37 points in the first two quarters, then holding Atlanta to 13 in the third and 20 in the fourth. Big turnaround in the second half for a 107-98 win. Very important game, I think, for the Celtics here. Later on in the third segment, I'll talk about the bench contribution, which was huge, and how the bench contributions are becoming a little bit more normal, a little more frequent. I'll get into that later. In the second segment, why this is, I think this second half especially, could be something that we look back on and say, ooh, that was a real turning point for this team. First, though, let's start with the Jaylen Brown injury. So Jaylen Brown is coming down the floor up the left side. He has just hit a basket. He's just had an assist to Robert Williams. He's got the braids. He's got the headband. He's looking fresh for national TV. Like this felt like, all right, JB's here to have some fun. And he's coming down that left side, crosses over Capella. And next thing you know, from my angle, my view of the game is, for those who don't know, the media sits above the tunnel by the bench. So when you're watching a game, the Celtics go through the tunnel by their bench to go back into the locker room. Above that tunnel to the left, from what you're watching on TV, is where the media sits. So when Jaylen is driving, he's almost like, I see him coming like right at me in a sense. And all of a sudden I didn't see him step on a foot. I see him driving and I hear, and then he drops to the ground. And I'm like Marcus Smart. Now, Marcus Smart says he saw the play from beginning to end. He was on the other side. He was going from behind. He didn't see contact. And he said, I saw him go down. I thought it was his knee. I didn't see any contact. I thought the worst. And at first I didn't know what to think, but it looked like a non-contact injury. And I thought it might be his knee as well. Then I saw him kind of grabbing at his hamstring. Then I looked at the replay and I thought I saw like both of his ankles kind of like wobbly. Then I look at it again. It's like, okay, yeah, the right ankle is the one that stepped on a foot there. So it kind of was like a progression for me, and it was a progression for Marcus Smart. Now, luckily, that doesn't seem to be a big deal. After the game, Ime Udoka said Jaylen Brown wanted to go back into the game. So very important update that Jaylen Brown seems to be okay. Now, anybody who's sprained an ankle before knows that at first there's an initial swelling, right? But you see guys tie that shoe up, get it nice and tight around that ankle, try to mitigate that swelling a little bit. Guys can go out there and if it's not that bad, try to play on it. And Jaylen tried to come back, and they ultimately held him out. But when you go to bed and you just let that thing sit there, then everything starts to swell and everything starts to stiffen up. And the Celtics do have a practice on Wednesday, and I'm willing to bet he's not going to practice. I'd be surprised if he was at practice. Maybe he will be, but I would be surprised. But it's at least good news that they had to tell him no, he wanted to come back and play, because that looked pretty bad. So bad to the point where Ime said the team looked shell-shocked after the game. The offense looked like, oh no, what do we do now? Right? Because you had to throw in, whenever you throw in a new substitution at a time he wasn't expecting to play, there's a little bit of like, uh-oh. And when they went without Jayson Tatum, there was a real kind of like panicked look. They had, at one point, it was Aaron Nesmith, Peyton Pritchard, Grant Williams, Al Horford, and Derrick White. That lineup did not do particularly great. And one big adjustment in the second half was much shorter stints for Jayson Tatum coming out of the game. Tatum played 39 minutes, 33 points, 8 rebounds, 7 assists, just 2 turnovers. The Celtics had 10 turnovers at halftime. This looked like it was going to be a brutal one, and they ended up with 12 overall, which actually was 14 because they had a couple of offensive fouls and stuff. So those count as turnovers, but they had 12 like live ball turnovers, which big adjustment there, or it was just good of them to be able to take care of the ball. Tatum looked pretty good, still 3 of 10 from 3, but he hits one more of that and we're saying, oh, he shot 40% from 3. So, that's fine. 12 of 25, a good overall game from Tatum, just a good overall game from him. In the second half, Tatum sat much less. Usually he comes out and he sits on a bike. In the fourth quarter, late in the third quarter, he came out and they're like, don't even bother getting on the bike. You're coming out for a couple minutes, try to use a timeout to give you a little extra time. You're going back in. But the first half, they looked absolutely just awful. Marcus Smart turning the ball over. He had 4 turnovers in the first half, but those were, he only had 1 after that. So good of Marcus Smart to kind of rein that in. And it's funny because the Celtics in that first half started to look like the old Celtics, the lose to the bad team Celtics, the ones that November and December. And it's funny, they're about 5 to 10 people between Boston Sports Journal and Twitter and the YouTube comments that when things aren't going great, they show up. When things are going great, when the Celtics are on a 9-game winning streak, don't hear from them at all. Disappear. But the instant things go wrong, some of these people, they just show up. They're, hey, oh, Marcus Smart's the point guard, huh? And they have like, suddenly they want to make the snide comments. It's kind of funny to kind of watch that. It's like, it's obvious what you're doing. It's very obvious that these people just want to troll or just be mad. You don't like a certain player and you want to come out and whatever. And then in the second half, nothing from any of these people. In the first half, they came out and they're like, hey, oh, blah, 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 I mean, all negative. And then in the second half, they're just like, oh, never mind. Like, be consistent. You know what I mean? You get, it's whatever. I'm going to stop responding to these people. Celtics were down by 17, 14 at the half. Then they immediately whip off a third quarter 14-0 run, come out of it like right away out of the half. Boom. It's instant 14. It's a tie game. Boom. And you start to get the feeling that Atlanta's a little bit dazed. And afterwards, Bogdanovich said it. He said, if you're up 17 and the other team loses one of its 2 best players and you can't win, you're not a good team. And that's kind of what happened here. Second half, third quarter especially, dominant Celtics came out very physical defensively, impose their will, and smarter on offense. Big contribution in the third quarter from Derrick White, which I'll get into a little bit later on. Grant Williams, a big stretch. The real turning point. So you have two turning points in this game. One is that 14-0 run to start the third quarter, because now that ties the game up. But about 3 minutes to go, 3 or 4 minutes to go, you have a blocked shot from Marcus Smart, a kind of a chase down where he said, I was so tired I wasn't even going to run back, but Grant and Jayson ran back, and so I was like, I gotta. And he comes up with this block. Then they come down. Tatum finds Grant Williams for a three. Then Smart makes this amazing steal tip over to Grant Williams, gets over to Jayson Tatum. Grant gets the ball back in the corner, 3-pointer. That went from an 8-point game and a chance to bring it down to 6. The block shot is a 5-point swing because instead of getting down to 6, it is now an 11-point game after Grant's 3. And then after that, it's another 3-pointer. It's a 14-point game. And all of a sudden, the score has flipped. You go from down 14 to up 14 in an instant. Now the game is over. So you got a little bit of everything in this second half. Tatum playing at an all-NBA level. Contributions from Derrick White. Contributions from Grant Williams. Aaron Nesmith came in this game and made a contribution with his energy. Peyton Pritchard comes in and makes a contribution. Everybody makes a contribution. Marcus Smart with his defense. Al Horford had a couple of big shots early in the fourth quarter. The second half was brilliant by the Celtics. So this could be a half where we really, I think, talk about this as a potential flashpoint in this season, which I will explain after we talk about PrizePicks. If you're looking for daily fantasy for the NBA, then you need to try an award-winning app called PrizePicks. It's daily fantasy made easy. I love this app. I've had people come up to me at the Garden and almost chastise me for getting them addicted to PrizePicks. They love it. And they're like, they love it almost too much. So it's very simple. You pick 2 to 5 players, you pick an over-under on their projections, and you can win up to 10 times on any entry. The part that's really fun here, it's you against the numbers. It's not you against people with supercomputers and all of that stuff. It's you, the numbers, and if you're good at that, then you could win. And entries can be made in 60 seconds or less. Super simple. It's safe, fast withdrawals, and the award-winning app is both on the App Store and on Google Play. And any props you can think of, really. Points scored, rebounds, steals, mixed sport entries. You can go into other sports. You can pick, you can go pro basketball, college basketball. If you want to go pro football or pro basketball and MMA, you can combine these sports and have some fun with the mixed choices. So go to PrizePicks, and for a limited time, PrizePicks has an exclusive no-brainer of an offer for every Locked On user. You get $50 for free if any player in your first PrizePicks entry scores a single point. This is giving away money, but you have to use the promo code NBA. It's an exclusive offer just for Locked On fans. Sign up today. Use the code NBA. You get $50 free if your first PrizePicks entry scores a single point. Go to prizepicks.com, download the app. Daily fantasy done right. Hey, thanks for making Locked On Celtics your first listen every day. Why not make Locked On now your second listen every day? You get recaps from both sides. So you get me after the Celtics game here, and you get Brad Rowland after the Celtics-Hawks game here, and you get both sides of the equation. So it's a good way to get both sides after the night in the NBA. Please go check that out. Wherever you get your podcasts, it's on the Locked On NBA YouTube feed. So I think that this second half has the potential to be a half of basketball that we look back on and say, that was an important half. Now, why would I say something like that? It's the Hawks. They're not a great team. And like I said, what Bogdanovich said about acknowledging they're not good. But here's, you lose Jaylen Brown. And I've said all along, the Celtics are not good. They're not good enough to withstand the loss of Brown or Tatum. Now, losing them in games a little bit different. Teams tend to find a way. There's a possibility of finding a way to win one of these games when a star goes down. Now, prolonged absence, no good. But an in-game thing, you can figure things out and guys can be energized to step up. So the first half of this game was so bad. The Celtics looked lost. They looked like their October, November, and December selves, right? It was just disheveled. It was turnover filled. The defense was nowhere close to being where it needed to be. The offense was stagnant. They were settling for shots. It was not good. It was not good. They came out in the second half and just flipped the script. And that to me is important. They got contributions from everybody, like I said before. They took what was going to be a horrible loss and they turned it into a pretty good win. And kind of, I don't want to say comfortable, but a little bit comfortable by the end. I mean, after that run, especially when Grant hit that first three, I was like, okay, I feel good about where this is going. Then he hit the second one. I was like, oh, this is over. But that turnaround defensively without Jaylen Brown, with everything that they got from everybody, I think that says a lot about how far they've come. And Marcus Smart, after the game, flat out said the same thing himself, unprompted. He said, if we, beginning of the season or earlier this season, that lead gets out to 30 in the third quarter and we can't fight back. We can't fight all the way back. So to come out with that energy and understand, like, okay, if we're going to do this, we need to play a certain way and guys need to step up and you get different contributions from the players that you got contributions for. I thought that could be something that they build on. I don't know what's going to happen with Memphis. If Jaylen isn't ready or if Jaylen's limited, then Memphis might be a game that you write off. But the fact that they were able to turn it around the way they were, considering where they were in the past, I think this has the hallmarks of a game that when we get to mid-April and the season's over and we say, okay, let's look back at these mile markers along the way. And we say, this game here was important and that game here was important. This Hawks game, this is March 1st. This is, like we talked about yesterday in the podcast with Tom Westerholm. This is what they're trying to show us here. They're trying to prove that they've moved past that October, November, December Celtics. And this second half against the team, now Atlanta, not great, but talented still. Bogdanovich is talented. Trae Young obviously is a star. They didn't have John Collins, but they still have other players here that are good, and they have their own issues, but they have talent. And for the Celtics to rally, to listen to Ime, for Ime to make the adjustments, the coaching staff to make the adjustments, substitution patterns, to settle the guys down at halftime, to, as he said, put in a package for Derrick White so Derrick White can do what he does, like his nine points in that third quarter, 4-4 shooting plus an and one, at a time where the Celtics had Atlanta in the bonus at the 8:40 mark. And then they kind of didn't attack. They drew a couple more fouls, but both of them were shooting fouls. They didn't attack the way they should have. And then here comes Derrick White, and he's getting to the rim and he's attacking. And okay, maybe you don't draw fouls and live at the line, but the other team understands that they're in the bonus and they don't want to foul. So put the pressure on the other team to defend. So attack, keep going. Find that extra pass, that extra drive, that extra something. Don't just settle for the threes. you know that they're either going to foul you or they're going to be like, oh, I don't want to foul. And they'll back off a little bit. Derrick White took advantage of that. And Marcus Smart did a great job finding him, as I said. So I don't know. I'll finish this segment by saying this. It might also mean nothing. Everything I just said might mean nothing, especially if the Memphis game goes awry and if they slip against Brooklyn, or if KD's back and Brooklyn just has this renewed energy and something changes there. Whatever. That's I'm not saying this is a particular flashpoint. It can be, it has the potential to be. And part of why it has the potential to be is because of the bench. And the bench is starting to play a little bit better, which I'll talk about when I come back. First, Built Bar. It's the best tasting protein bar on the market. I love Built Bars. They are covered in chocolate, but they're not like a candy bar, which is 240 calories or so, 30 grams of sugar, net carbs through the roof. Like you don't want one of those. Built Bar, 130 calories or so, 4 grams of sugar, 4 net carbs, and how about 17 grams of protein or thereabout, depending on which Built Bar you pick up. Or maybe you don't want one of those. Maybe you want a Built Puff if you just like marshmallows. These are like protein-infused marshmallows. They keep coming up with great products at Built, and you need to check them out. Go to Built.com and see all of the different flavors that are there. Scroll over each product, and the nutrition facts will show up because they're not hiding anything at Built.com. They have tons of sales, tons of special drops, all sorts of things there for you. So go check it out. The best part is you use the promo code LOCKED15. You'll get 15% off every single time. So don't feel pressure with the promo code that you have to stock up. Go buy one thing. Just go buy one thing. And when you go back, and I know you'll go back, use it again. There's a mixed box that you can buy. Sample a few, 5, 6 flavors, and pick 2, 3. Then you can stock up if you want. Locked 15. That's going to get you 15% off every single time at Built.com. Thanks for making Locked On Celtics your first listen every day. How about making Locked On NBA your second listen every day? Now, I do host the Wednesday Locked On NBA show with Jake Madison. I'm not on it today because the Celtics play when they play on Tuesday. I'm too busy to stay in touch with the games in the NBA, so I can't do it, but I'll be back next week. So check out Locked On NBA. It's a fun show. It's great to get caught up on the big stories in the NBA. Follow it wherever you get your podcasts, also on YouTube at the Locked On NBA YouTube channel. The Celtics got a big contribution from their bench, 39 bench points. They outscored the Hawks bench by 2. That's the Celtics outscoring any bench is a big deal at this point this season. And I said it in my preview on Boston Sports Journal that the Celtics being able to outscore the bench for the Hawks would be a big deal because Bogdanovich is so dangerous. And for him to do what he does against the Celtics without any sort of counter from the Celtics, that's where you get into trouble. He had 25 in this game, and the Celtics ended up getting 36 just from Derrick White and Grant Williams. So they counteracted what Bogdanovich was doing for the Hawks. Now, this season, the Celtics bench is averaging 29 points a game. So they got 39 in this one, to 10 points over their average. But for post-All-Star break games, the Celtics are up to 37 points per game. So the Celtics bench is actually doing a pretty good job. And there's a variety of reasons here. First of all, Grant Williams in a bench role has been pretty steady all along. He's had a big February. He's just generally put up big numbers. Derrick White is helping out with some of that by chipping in a few points here and there. And this one he had 18. Peyton Pritchard is getting more opportunity. So the Dennis Schröder trade is kind of at the heart of all of this. They're able to play Marcus Smart and Derrick White together. When they do that, one big thing is that Derrick White can play off ball and Smart can be the primary ball handler. Whereas when Schröder was starting, when they were playing him and Schröder together, Smart had to play off ball. And Smart as a shooting guard or small forward off ball is kind of not the right position for him. Him as a ball handler, him in a facilitating role, I think he's really good. I think he is he's been shown to be a really good point guard. The guys in the team think he's a really good point guard. So having Derrick White and having him come off the bench, being able to play him with Marcus Smart is a big deal. To have White as a guy that can catch off the ball and be a slasher or a shooter and all of that, needs to be a better shooter, but still. So Derrick White helps. Grant Williams helps. Peyton Pritchard has had a couple of big scoring games. Now, in this one, not so much. Only hit one shot. But if we're talking about overall bench scoring, anything that you can chip in, it helps. And hey, 3 points is what gets the Celtics to outscore the Hawks bench. It's still a middle of the pack scoring bench. I'm not going to sit here and say like, oh, everything's fixed. But because of the consistency in the lineups and consistency in roles, if these guys are whole, then you're going to see more of bench contributions being just chipping in a little bit more than they have. Like I said, 29 points before the break, 37 points after that's a big improvement. Derrick White, if he can continue to average somewhere in this range, would be huge. Grant Williams can continue to average somewhere in this range, 14, 15, 16 points. That's a big deal. Now you're looking at 30 points. If Pritchard, now that he's getting some burn because Schröder is gone, if he comes in and hits a few shots, then all you need is one more guy. And that's more from your bench. That takes the pressure off of Tatum and Brown. That takes pressure off of these other guys to come in and score. So I think the Celtics bench has the potential to be better than it has. And that's an important thing. Look, we're just trying to get them to the playoffs in the highest seed possible. And I'm not expecting much from Peyton in the postseason. I'm not expecting much from Nesmith in the postseason. This rotation is going to be down to 7, maybe 8. And one of those guys or Daniel Tice or somebody can come in. Tice did not play in this game, which, people have been sending me mailbag questions and questions on Twitter. We'll dive into that tomorrow. I'll get Tom Westerholm back and we can hammer that out. But getting more than the 5th worst production, which is where the Celtics are overall, getting more than that from their bench is a big thing. I want to point out one last thing that Grant Williams said. He was talking about the 2 3-pointers that he hit. So that stretch of Smart making the block and Smart making the steal and Grant getting those 2 3-pointers is the real turning point in the game. That ices the game. Tatum assists on both of those 3-pointers. And Grant says after the game, he went to Tatum and said, hey, do you want me to be a cutter? And maybe Bogdanovich won't come up to W. And Tatum said, no, I want you to space. Stay in the corner, space the floor. I will find you, which is a big deal, I think, because Grant offered in the middle of the game, at the end of the game, Grant offers, hey, you need me to be a cutter? I can pull this guy away. You can isolate. And Tatum's like, no. Do you want me to be a cutter to, maybe keep 2 guys off of you and you can go do your own, however you want to attack, whatever? No, I want to draw the double team. Basically is what Tatum said. I want to draw the double team, which is a nice development. That's a nice development. Tatum understands that's what he's supposed to do. He didn't take the easy out. He didn't set up a side play with Grant where Grant offered to be the cutter. So yeah, if you cut, I'll do this and that. Like, you know, and it's like a sacrificial cut. Like guys make cuts all the time to sacrifice themselves. It's called a sacrificial cut because you're taking yourself out of the play, but you're also pulling a defender out of the play. He offered to do that. And Tatum's like, no, I want you in the play. One, because he trusts Grant to make the shot. Two, because that's what the coach wants. I think that's a nice progression for Tatum. And the fact that Grant just kind of offered that up unprompted was pretty good. And then Grant gets the pass in the corner off of a double and drills the shot, which is perfect. That's exactly what Jayson Tatum is supposed to do. Tatum does his job. Grant does his job. Everybody's happy. Celtics win. So that's great. Nice development there. Nice development. The Celtics have won. And now off to face the Memphis Grizzlies. Celtics practice on Wednesday. I will have Tom Westerholm back tomorrow to talk about some of these elements from the game and what happened in practice and looking ahead to Memphis Grizzlies. And then post-game Memphis on Friday. It's a Monday through Friday show, so make sure you're subscribed. Thank you for making it your first listen. Or if you're on YouTube, your first watch. That's great. Watch the show on YouTube. Would love to have you subscribe to the YouTube show. Please do that. If you are subscribed, then take the opportunity to tell your friends, your family, everybody that you come across, say, hey, you should be listening to and watching the Locked On Celtics podcast here on the Locked On Podcast Network.